Good morning, it's Joyful Christian Hermit. Somebody mentioned that they were bothered they couldn't watch because of my pigtails. So, of course, I wrote explaining about my pigtails. My hair is too short for a ponytail, and I don't like my hair in my face when I'm working because it's always flopping down and it impedes seeing and being able to, if you're using power tools and stuff, you don't want your hair down in your eyes. But I'll pull it down for now. And also then the pigtails, if I'm laying in bed, it's nice and flat rather than a bulge of a ponytail back there. And it's not that I stay in bed all day. I'm up and down. Mercy, what do you want, honey? I found an old letter. I was going through things. This is from 2014. I would have been on the island. A letter from my spiritual Da. He would have been 94 then. It was summertime, July 29th. It was just fun. It was stuck in with my Avila stuff somehow. I found a lot of stuff from Avila that I'd like to share with you, including a book and pictures and things. My it was supposed to be 3 months I was going to spend there. It was just my life. I've had these wonderful opportunities, and my body always interferes with these beautiful gifted on. So anyway, he's at the convent. He was the chaplain. Greetings and salutations, he wrote. He had a fun sense of humor. Irish, 100% Irish. I just gave a tour to one of the sisters of his gardens. If you were here, you would be jealous of me. He had a good sense of humor, dry sense of humor, dry and wry. We have beautiful flowers. I have the tallest dahlia plants and flowers the size of a dinner plate. Oh, he did. He was a gifted, holy gardener. He says, I hate to boast. Just can't help it. Your trees are growing strong and healthy. I'd given him a couple of Japanese maples, the Killarney. I gave him a Killarney Japanese maple, now 10 feet high, and Irish lace is of the spreading type, a very nice one to look at. Then there is the rocket. I also gave him a tree that is found in Wyoming. I found one, blue rocket, a conifer, because he missed Wyoming. He liked Wyoming. That's where he spent 50 years. He came over as an Irish missionary priest to Cheyenne, Wyoming, back in the mid-40s, right after World War II. And he helped develop, they needed priests. So he went from Ireland there after he was out of seminary and out of his training. And he had been to Lebanon and had celebrated Mass at the altar at St. Charbel, McLoof's little hermitage up in the mountains. So he gave me the relic he had from there. He felt it wouldn't be safe left with the sisters. Some of them so disrespected him. So I have that relic to keep it safe, and I'll need to pass it on to someone to keep it safe when I get ready to seriously die. So the rocket's growing straight and tall, about 10 feet tall, but the lower front was damaged last winter. Well, that can happen. But this is what happened after he passed away on St. Patrick's Day, 2019. The sisters so disliked him because they were of the dissenting type sisters. Not all. The loving and beautiful and Orthodox Catholic ones sisters had died off. There were just a handful toward the end. And he remained there for them to make sure they had their sacraments, and he put up with horrible mistreatment from the other sisters. And they cut down all his trees, the ones I gave him, because they didn't like me either. So it's sad. We have a lot of praying to do for people in the church and religious people who have lost their Christianity. But those trees were thriving. Took a bit to find Killarney and Irish lace. Those were the ones that the man in Illinois who had about any kind of Japanese maple you could possibly find. And just a wonderful man he died of pancreatic cancer. So it's a shame, isn't it, that they did that. Even cut down the rocket. Didn't want any remembrance of him, of Father Fahey. This great priest, holy man. And he wouldn't have ever said a word. I'm the bad one. I was always honest about it. But he would give them excuses of this and that they just didn't understand, or they didn't, that they were so sure after Vatican II that they would be able to be priests, and when they weren't, it hurt them. So they spent the rest of their lives getting back at him, being a priest. He said nothing personal. They just feel like they weren't given justice. So he always had a reason that would give them a benefit of the doubt and excuse them. But the very end, when they wouldn't let him have enough heat they left him in a crummy area, a horrible room, not enough heat. He was cold. And they took all his money, anything anyone had ever given him, and they cut down his trees. And also just eviscerated his flower gardens while he was still alive. Just add a little, get the knife in there and turn it. 99 and 3/4-year-old priest who was always kind and good to them. Mass every day. And so we have a lot to work to do in the church, don't we? This new pope seems balanced, and let's hope that he's respected. He says, I looked up many of your perennials. Some have bloomed, others are blooming. Or he's done something. He's planted them, or I gave him lots of perennials. When I moved, I gave him lots of things from my gardens. I don't know the names of most of them. They are all of a special kind. Yeah, I had unique plants and trees. That was my first gardens, the big ones. I had one in my small hometown, but the one in the city, in the subdivision on the edge of the city, was the most spectacular of gardens I have ever had and ever will. And those are the ones I had to dig up and move and sell a great deal of them. Sold a fourth of the large ones. A fourth of the trees that were large. The weather is cool now, too cool at night. We need rain. We had a little last weekend, but the flowers are at their best now. I need a walker and a cane to get around. He would update me on what was happening with his health. I am not able to step in the flower beds and pull the weeds, and my feet are too unsteady. God help me. May he love you too, Joan. Oops, said my name. Father Fahey. So, that was a surprise letter I found stuffed away in things. And I thought I would read this. He liked this. This must have been something that he asked me to. I had written this back in 2006. And Mercy, honey, you're pawing at me for something. You want another treat, but we're not going to have it right now. We're going to wait till Uncle Porter comes to help. We're going to try to sort the garage some. His grandson's coming to help me sort the garage. Well, he wants some money. He's going to visit some friends for a week. So, and I need the help. So, I'm happy to have him come and spend time with him. It's a joy. And of course, being Gaga, I pay him a little more than what he'd get anywhere. That's a grandmother's privilege, isn't it? And I'm grateful for his help. He'll lift boxes and things and tell me about what he's up to and his friends where he's going to visit. So this is called I Will Know You in Your Littleness. This I wrote back, as I said, February 12th, 2006. And it's all folded up. It had been in an envelope with his letter. So it must have been something that he asked to read that I sent him, printed out, that I'd written for my blog, which was called, this one was called Omnia Pro Deo Blogspot. Other one I had was the Catholic Hermit. But I stopped the Catholic Hermit, the name of that one, because of this lady that just kept on and on about how you're not allowed to call yourself a Catholic hermit unless you're a diocese hermit. And that's not true at all. But why fuss with people? So I just changed my names around to different things. Omnia Pro Deo, all for God. And now I'm Christian Hermit, which Jesus Christ has blessed me for that name as opposed to Catholic. Because I'm saying his name. I'm using Christ and Christianity, which I am a Christian. I wish the Catholic Church would change back to being Christian Church. Wouldn't that be lovely? Then people wouldn't be confused. And maybe Catholics would strive harder in the Christian ideals, too. It would be right before them, the name Christian. This morning, in the slit-slat space between closed and open blinds, I heard his voice tell me that he would get to know me in my littleness. Yeah, I had this message that morning way back, that he would get to know me in my littleness. This is what he wants. This is the space in which he wants to speak with me, not in the blaring daylight of earthly accomplishment and acclaim. Last evening I began yet another book. Hermits is very old. I find no copyright. I found it the other day at a bookstore in the city I live. It was a used books, along with some other gems. The author might be a Calvinist, hard to tell. Regardless, after the introduction, the remaining work is well-researched information of various early desert fathers, beginning with St. Anthony of the Desert and including St. Paul of the Desert, considered the earliest. There are several following which are new to me. These initial pages impute to me the reality with much surprise that I am now more living the eremitical life than previous. Conscious attempts. An eremite is a Christian hermit. Even here at Panera, I would go to Panera after Mass and type on my laptop, do my blog there. I am more in solitude, but able to affect the hermit life of hospitality. When others need a smile or encouraging word, I am here as God's bauble to reflect his light and love. Otherwise, I observe and write of the spiritual life as it exists in this world, from within to without, and from without to within. Another book, also snatched from the stimulating shelves of the name of the bookstore, is called Franciscan Mysticism. I've already shared that book with you. I went through it with you early on, about a year ago, or at least last fall. Pere Boniface Maes wrote the small tome in 1668 under the title Theologia Mystica. The Latin title, published a year later, was subtitled Mystical Theology, or the Spiritual Life, very useful for all those who wish to love God perfectly and to be intimately united to him. Also for pastors of souls to ensure their salvation and that of others expounded and arranged according to a clear, precise, and brief method by Brother Boniface Maes, lector of the provinces of Friars Minor, recollects of the country of Flanders, Ghent, at the house of Maximilian Great, and the Latin numerics, so there. Anyway, that was all the subtitle of this little tiny book. Born in Ghent in 1627, Boniface Maes died a holy death in 1706, having been a religious of great virtue and deep learning. At one time professor, superior, and provincial of his Franciscan order of Recollects. They were called Recollects, recollection. The time period was strong for the order of St. Francis. The Flemish were a bit behind other countries in the movement of piety, but Pere Boniface Maes was the forerunner of such spiritual masters of the 17th century. Francis Cowell, Matthias Krunenborg, and Fulgence Bodens. The reform of the Recollects and their intense religious life survived until the end of that century, the end of the 17th century, or the 1600s. This is a quote. Pere Maes did not despise the intellect, but he only desired to see it the servant of love. My God, I do not want to know you except to love you. At another point he insists, mystical theology is the art of loving God and of hating ourselves. This sounds radical, and perhaps it is, but the asceticism of Pere Maes is wise and radical, and marked by a peculiar energy. He goes straight to the roots and attacks them until they are extirpated. And what are those roots? The vices. But the asceticism of Pere Maes is wise and radical, and marked by a peculiar energy. He goes, I already said that. The vices. He does not advocate doing violence to one's heart with great labor without discretion, so that nature suffers no injury. We're not to hurt ourselves. We're to handle our vices, but not beat up on ourselves. He insists that one must attack the roots nonetheless, and he identifies these roots as the secret agents of the vices, the disordered love of self and of created things for the sake of self. He does not encourage active blows and exterior efforts. Rather, Pere Boniface Maes suggests wearing away the roots to nibble at them and kill them little by little. That's how we get rid of our vices, what he suggests doing. In this manner, by today's metaphor, the tree will topple without having to take the chainsaw to it. Maybe I ought to try that with my big trees out there. Just cut the roots away one by one with my reciprocating saw down in the ground. And then just shove it over for free. A little bit of work. Now someone here at Panera thought it dreadful to consider hating oneself in order to love God. There would be a theology teacher from the nearby university who would stop by my table when I would write. And if I had an interesting looking, but well, what's that? And I'd say, and I had that quote for him that morning about, where is it here? Mystical theology is the art of loving God and of hating ourselves. Loving God, but hating ourselves. He didn't like that. He said, all this meant by hating ourself well. I say, well, because hating oneself in this manner is really loving oneself. And what is the manner? There are 3 points offered of the manner of hating ourselves well. To practice hating ourselves, I don't know, something from the grandson. It's okay, we'll figure it out. To practice hating ourselves, Pere Boniface relies on the writings of Alphonsus of Madrid, who wrote Art of Serving God and was the bedside book of St. Teresa of Avila. So these are the points. Number 1, in never desiring or accepting anything that can give you pleasure except that which you cannot omit to desire or to take without offending God. In other words, strengthen yourself in the state of mind that you would absolutely reject these things if such things were not the will of God. Number 2, embracing and desiring all the pains, the ignominies, and the insults that befall you, so long as they are not contrary to the will of God. Number 3, in not only giving up everything that is pleasant and desiring every inconvenience and trying with all your power to rejoice in these inconveniences, considering that it is to the greater glory of God that these trials, adversities, and privations should beset you. Like I'm having terrible intestinal pains. I never really, a couple of days, got over the let me think, I was having a wave of pain. The gut attack that was coming on, might have another one coming on. So I don't know, we'll see how much work I get done with the grandson, but I probably didn't get quite over it. I need a heat pack to get this calmed down, starting to distend. Anyway, I need to rejoice in these. Consider them to the greater glory of God that I have this trial. And understand, accept that these adversities beset me. So that's what that right here was an example, living out in my body, this number 3 point, for how to nibble away at our vices, at our love of self, to die to ourselves. Pere Boniface offers that if a person perseveres with constancy in the above practices, little by little, one will enjoy the fruit of these exercises. He who prefers to lose every other good and to suffer no matter what evil, rather than to offend God, loves God perfectly. That's true dying to ourselves. It's just basically accept all is coming from God that affects us. Accept it, die to ourselves, and keep loving God despite any kind of privations or sufferings, such as right now. I'm having surges of pain and feel sick and awful. All of a sudden I am. Probably God wanted it as an example that I could practice it right here and now. To enjoy this as a fruit of dying to self, of practicing that, to prefer to lose every other good and to suffer no matter what evil or upset, rather than to offend God and love God. And that's loving God perfectly, is to really deny ourselves and to consider all that, like God allowed this sudden awful pain. It's coming from my lumbar, and I feel like my whole insides are on fire now, my intestines and my stomach. And now I overdid it. I've overdone it this week, driving the 6 miles back and forth to the daughters and helping. And I painted another coat on the laundry room yesterday in the ceiling, and just probably more than what my spine and my whole system can take, and then not sleeping well at night. So, and it's raining, so the weather shift affects a neurological problem. But God's allowing all this to help. He's helping to purge me and perfect me. The more I suffer, the more I cling to God and understand how much God loves me. How did God love perfectly? Pere Boniface writes that man loves God perfectly who detaches his heart from everything else, and whose will is solely occupied, not perhaps continually, but as constantly as human fragility permits, with desiring the advancement of the glory of God. To love God in that manner is to be holy. And I already hit, here I've got this little pill box. I always put my pills away when anyone comes, because and I trust my grandson, but I don't trust some of maybe his friends or something might pressure him. I just don't tempt people with having prescription opioids out around for even a kid who might think, wonder what it'd be like, He's a brilliant, very brilliant young man. In fact, it's been hard on him to be so brilliant, because he has an intense curiosity, very creative. He can do anything he wants, and he was beyond his years. And a couple of years ago, he was very into researching psychedelic drugs, different things he thought might help me. No, I didn't want some of the things. He wanted me to try ketamine treatment, which can really do a lot of damage too. It has some side effects. And it's usually for people that nothing else is working. They also have some issues going on, blocks and things. Psychological pains and things, which I do not have. So it wouldn't have been. But he was just curious because it was new. He was researching it and sort of wanted to hear from someone he knew what it was like. No thanks, dear grandson. He was maybe 16 at the time he was doing that, and taking junior college courses with a breeze for him. But so he's bright. But yeah, I don't want to tempt in anything. You just can't risk it. Mercy, please, honey. Mommy doesn't feel good in my tummy, and I'm trying to read this and stop talking about myself and get my mind off of it. Okay, so we are to love God more perfectly than another due to the greater regard of one person's will has for God than another. To do this, one must cling more to God with greater love and abstain from not only mortal sins but also venial sins, the major sins and the minor ones. This latter degree includes abstaining not only from unpermitted pleasures, but also from permitted pleasures. It takes practice and effort to strive for holiness. God is the only one who can love himself to a perfect degree, as he is worthy of being loved to the degree that he is lovable, which means himself. Yet we love him, and we strive to love him more perfectly, and this can be aided by learning to love him to the abnegation of our self-love. She's nearly done. Mercy, please, no, honey. Don't scratch at me. I'll get up in a minute. I'll have to get up and get a heat pad. Tomorrow I must call the dentist. My useless cavity was filled a week ago and is making usefully painful cries for help. My prayers asking Saint Apollonia, she's good for teeth. She had her teeth knocked out. Makes Apollonia to make it all better. I've gone thus far the way of uselessness. My poor tooth is helpless also to the elements introduced to my mouth. Is this because the throat, the mouth, or as St. Paul suggests, a sepulchre or grave and filled with death due to my gossip and useless statements? I had offended the pain of having my back molar drilled out, but I had offered the pain of having my back molar drilled out, but evidently Jesus desires my joy of further infiltration. I embrace with pleasure the inconvenience for the greater glory of God. See, this is just good that I happened to see this, happened to read it, and all of a sudden, I'm getting so ill. Very ill. I hope I can make it to the kitchen to get the heat back. So I feel like I could faint right here. The pain is getting horrific. I'm good at handling it, but this is a lot, Lord, and just came on suddenly. Mercy, please don't scratch at me. Don't scratch at me. I'm not well. I don't feel well, honey. Jesus will get to know me only in my littleness. All these exercises and helps are ways to become little. Being helpless in the dentist chair, mouth open like a baby bird, drill pecking out the filling and refilling what is not right to make it right. Jesus knows just how little I must become. I am learning to walk, and Jesus helps me if I but try over and over and over. And this is what's happening right now. How sudden this arachnoiditis can flare. And I knew I needed to read this for some reason, and to offer this suffering for God, and to know that it is to get out aspects of me that are not good. That message years ago, nearly 20 years ago, I will know you in your littleness. I am about as little as it can get right now. So, God bless you all. Gotta try to do something. I think having the grandson come over is going to have to be off. So, say a prayer for me, please, that I keep a positive attitude with whatever this is going on. I hope it's not a violent gut attack. But if it is, may I offer it for God and for all of you, everyone who suffers, and for the headache man who has some other issues going on too, of psychological blocks in him, and of not having been, he doesn't understand things like we do. Maybe a learning disability, but his mother did so much for him, and then she died. So God bless. We all have trials, don't we? Everybody needs love and understanding and prayer. So, have a beautiful Saturday. Is this first? No, this isn't first Saturday. It's the middle of the month. Good grief. God bless you all.